In that place between wakefulness and dreams, I found myself in the room. There were no distinguishing features except for the one wall covered with small index card files. They were like the ones in libraries that list by titles or author and subject in alphabetical order. But these files, which stretched from floor to ceiling in seemingly endless direction either way, they had very different headings. As I drew near the wall of files, the first to catch my attention was the one that read, "Girls I've Liked." I opened it and began flipping through the cards. I quickly shut it, shocked to realize that I recognized the names written on each one. And then, without being told, I knew exactly where I was. This lifeless room with its small files was a crude catalog system for my life. Here were written the exact actions for every moment, big and small, in detail that my memory couldn't match. A sense of wonder and curiosity, coupled with horror, stirred within me as I began randomly opening files and exploring their content. Some brought joy and sweet memories, others a sense of shame and regret, so intense I would look over my shoulder and see if anyone was watching. A file named Friends was next to the one marked Friends I Had Betrayed. The titles ranged from the mundane to the outright weird. Books I have read, lies I have told, comfort I had given, jokes I had laughed at. Some were almost hilarious in their exactness, things I yelled at my brothers. Others I couldn't laugh at, things I'd done in my anger, things I've muttered under my breath at my parents. I never had ceased to be surprised by their contents. Often there were so many more cards than I expected, sometimes fewer than I had hoped. I was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the life I had lived. Could it be possible that I, in my short years here on Earth, had lived these thousands or even millions of cards? But each card confirmed this truth. Each was written in my handwriting, each signed with my signature. When I pulled out the file marked TV shows I had watched, I realized the files grew to contain their contents. The files were packed tightly, and yet after 2 or 3 yards, I hadn't found the end of the file. I shut it, shamed, not so much by the quality of the shows, but more by the vast time I knew that file represented. When I came to the file marked Lustful Thoughts, I felt a chill run through my body. I pulled the file out only an inch, not willing to test its size. I drew out a card. I shuddered at its detail and content. I felt sick to think that such a moment had been recorded. An almost animal rage broke out on me. One thought dominated my mind. No one must ever see these cards. No one must ever see this room. I have to destroy them. In an insane frenzy, I yanked out the cards. Its size didn't matter now. I had to empty and burn these cards. But as I took it at one end and began to pound it on the floor, I could not dislodge a single card. I became desperate and pulled out a card to find it strong as steel when I tried to tear it. Defeated and utterly helpless, I returned the file to its slot. Leaning my forehead against the wall, I let out a long, self-pitying sigh. And then I saw it. The title bore, "People I've Shared the Gospel With." This handle was brighter than those around it, newer, almost unused. I pulled on its handle and a small box, not more than 3 inches, fell into my hands. I could count the cards it contained on one hand. And then the tears came. I began to weep, sobs so deep that they hurt. They started in my stomach and shook through me. I fell on my knees and I cried. I cried out of shame, from the overwhelming shame of it all. The rows of files shells swirled in my tear-filled eyes. No one must ever know of this room. I must lock it up and hide the key. But then as I pushed away the tears, I saw him. No, please not him, not here. Anyone but Jesus. I watched helplessly as he began to open the files and read the cards. I couldn't bear to watch his response. And in the moments, I couldn't bring myself to look at his face. I saw it deeper than my own. He seemed to intuitively go to the worst boxes. Why did he have to read every one? Finally, he turned and looked at me from across the room. He looked at me with pity in his eyes, but this was a pity that didn't anger me. I dropped my head, covered my face with my hands, and began to cry again. He walked over and he put his arm around me. He could have said so many things, but he didn't say a word. He just cried with me. Then he got up, walked back to the wall of files, started at one end of the room, and he took out a file, and one by one, he began to sign his name over mine on each card. No, I shouted, rushing to him. All I could find to say was, no, no. And I pulled the card from him. His name should be on these cards. But there it was. There it was, written in red, so rich, so deep, so alive. The name of Jesus covered mine. It was written with his blood. He gently took the card back, and he smiled a sad smile and began to sign the cards. I don't think I'll ever understand how he did it so quickly, but in the next instant, it seemed I heard him close the last file and walk back to my side. He placed his hand on my shoulder and said, "It is finished." I stood up, and he led me out of the room. I looked back to the door, but there was no lock on it, for there were still cards to be written.